Welcome to More Than a Lawyer, the show where we celebrate and learn from those who are successfully juggling multiple passions and careers. I'm your host, London Lewis, and today I'm thrilled to have our guest on, Akeem D. Earle, on the podcast. Akeem has recently made a significant career leap from paralegal specialist role to become an assistant attorney general in the criminal division. He also was accepted into the Department of Justice's honors program and will be starting as an Assistant U.S. attorney in the Tucson U.S. Attorney's Office in the fall. He's also the host of his very own podcast, Akeem D. Earle, where he dives into the lives of lawyers, exploring how they balance their professional and personal identities. In our conversation, we'll explore Akeem's journey from paralegal specialist to Assistant Attorney General and now Assistant U.S. Attorney, as well as discuss his passions and how he's crafted a successful career blueprint. Get ready for an engaging discussion on managing multiple roles and finding success in every aspect of your career. Welcome, Akeem.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was my first ever podcast intro. So I appreciate that.
No, we love it. Thank you so much for your time. Now, as I was going over kind of like your bio, I wanted to start off like, okay, you made the jump from paralegal specialist to assistant attorney general. And I was like reading your LinkedIn and I was like, wait, I need to know. Can you share what the transition was like from paralegal specialist to your current role now? And like,
yeah, sure.
Yeah, any tidbits you want to share?
For sure. So it was all with the same governmental agency. So I worked for the DC Attorney General's office. And I start by saying none of my opinions that I express here today are of the Attorney General's office.
Right.
For DC.
Great disclaimer.
Right. But it was kind of honestly a seamless transition because it was for the same agency. So I was obviously working as a paralegal for them for 5 years. And once I finished law school, passed the bar, they have a thing called the Ruff Fellowship Program. It's named after Charles F.C. Ruff. He was a prominent attorney in D.C. And it's basically a 1 to 2 year program for new lawyers, law students coming out of law school, to take their hand at being assistant attorney general, being a prosecutor, to see if that's what they actually want to do. They want to be a civil servant, they want to work in government. So once I passed the bar, I applied basically at my same agency in a different division, and I was able to transition seamlessly to be assistant attorney general. 2 different roles, big different roles, but I was able to transition well at the same time.
I love that. So what motivated you to pursue a career in law? Because, you're in the thick of it. Like, you're in DC, you're on the political side. I'm just like, I'm so interested in that. And then how did your experience as a paralegal specialist prepare you for it?
Yeah. So I honestly didn't have any plans of being in DC. And I obviously didn't have any plans of moving to Arizona either. God just allowed those things to happen. But I wanted to become a lawyer since I was a kid. I feel like a lot of attorneys have similar stories. When you were younger, you argue a lot. And somebody in church was like, you like to argue, you should be a lawyer. But that was my origin story. From that sparked just interest. So just doing more programs that involve the law, asking more questions, or trying to do more research on how to become a lawyer. And that's what started my path. And God placed people in my path since I made that decision. Whether it was in 8th grade, I had a program called Legal Outreach, where they made it their duty to reach out to kids in the city to introduce them to the law. So this was at Brooklyn Law School. And we would have mock law school classes. They would take us to different law firms. And the mock law school classes were taught by law students at Brooklyn Law School. So that was like part of their extracurricular activities at Brooklyn Law School. And that was dope.
That's pretty dope.
At the end, there was this big mock trial competition that they always do at the end of the program. And I was doing that, like a direct examination of the trial. And I received like an award for like best examination.
Okay.
I was able to examine the victim, and and I'm sure, as you know, when you do an examination, a direct examination, you're supposed to ask questions in a certain type of way and in a certain manner to get the best information out. And they gave me that award for being able to do that. So it felt good to be recognized for something. It was the first time I felt like I was good at something, that somebody acknowledged, like, hey, you're good at this thing. So they if somebody else thinks I'm good at it, I should probably keep doing this thing. So that was helpful to continue on that journey. And along the way, there was just more people who was accepted into a legal program. I did a program at Penn State. That was very helpful. I did a program at Widener. All these different things that came into my path was helpful.
Wow. And as I mentioned, like, you have your own podcast. So how do you manage those responsibilities in your current role, which is like a more elevated role, to also hosting a podcast? Because I know it's, from my experience, it's a full-time second job.
Yo, it's full-time. And I wouldn't encourage everybody to do it. It's tough, especially being a prosecutor. Like, that is like the worst job to try to have like a side thing going on. Right. I have over 100 cases. I'm in trial all the time.
Oh my God.
It's a lot. So being able to manage my time well, whether it's after work or on the weekends, that's how I have to do it. And just, I mean, reaching out to guests is kind of like the easy part, because I can just like text somebody in the middle of the day or send that LinkedIn message or send that email quickly. Right. But setting up a time to record and setting up a time to like really do a deep dive on your guests and do the research and get the right questions and spend time in that while I have to write a cross-examination and an opening statement for my trial the next week, it's hard to like balance those things. But if you really love something, you make time for it. And
that's
I've been honestly moving into a space where, as you know, having a podcast, you have to like feed the algorithm. And I've been trying to do less of that because I really enjoy doing this. I really enjoy interviewing attorneys. So I don't want to make it into a thing. I just need to generate as much content as possible.
Right.
I've been moving into the space where like, okay, I'm going to find attorneys that I really want to sit down and take my time and really do it. And I feel like I have to release something every single week and generate content all the time and release 100 clips a week.
Exactly.
So I've been slowing down, but it's been great.
And I mean, it's summer.
And it's summer. And it's been like the busiest I've been at this job too. So that adds to it also.
Oh, wow. So then you mentioned hitting up guests is like the easier part for you. How do you select guests? Just because as a prosecutor, I'm curious, like, are people liking you or hating you if they're on the other side? You know what I mean? Like, ooh.
Luckily, a lot of my guests are people who have already built relationships.
Okay, great.
Which I feel like is the key. And I'm glad that they like me more than they like what I do.
Right.
That's very helpful. Because a lot of them, I've gotten into a lot of heated arguments and debates about obviously being a black man, being a prosecutor. I've heard it all. I've argued with defense counsel, with other prosecutors who no longer are prosecutors and said they hate it. I've had all those conversations.
Oh, wow.
But luckily, I feel like I have a gift of building relationships outside of just what I do. So people just want to sit down with me and talk regardless because they know I'm just cool in general. So if a prosecutor was like who I was, who I made in my identity, it probably wouldn't be as great. But I've had like 3 defense attorneys on my podcast. And and we're that cool. I have defense attorneys who are my mentors. And so like, I feel like that's where I want to move into, specifically with that type of relationship where it's like defense prosecutor doesn't have to be like on site. Where I know for certain people it is very contentious just because you're a defense attorney, I can't lie. You're a prosecutor, I can't lie. I don't think that should be the case. Like,
exactly.
We both in court all the time. We see each other every day. I don't have the energy to be mad at you.
Exactly.
Like you bad cool, you're funny. Like I'm not about to make your job who you are.
Right. No. I love hearing that because you know how you can watch TV shows and it seems like, you know, there's like a love-hate relationship of like the person on the other side. And I'm just wondering, from your perspective, has there ever been like a case that's really challenging to where you felt like it did affect a relationship with the other side? Or you're like, you know what, I leave that at home. I mean, I leave that at the office and I go home and I kind of like forget about it.
So I know for trial, you get very contentious.
Yeah.
Especially when like you're arguing an objection. And you can be really like snotty and take little jabs. And I've done it and people have done it to me. But it never spilled over into the outside. And I feel like
that's
good. If it does, then you were probably very disrespectful. At least for the different attorneys that I've worked with in the Superior Court, there's never been a moment where something was said or something was done where I felt like we can't be cordial or cool outside the court. And obviously I'm still new into this. I'm coming up on my second year being an attorney.
Wow.
But from what I've seen so far, what I've recognized is, if I don't like you afterwards, or if it's real contested afterwards, you must have really said something crazy. Because you can advocate for your client for sure,
right?
But you don't have to take personal jabs. You don't have to be disrespectful. So thankfully, it hasn't been the case. But in trial, even the trial I just came out of, we took a couple jabs, but afterwards, I was playing chess with him.
Right,
right after, like it was cool.
They have to respect. So they have to respect your strategy.
Right.
And then, so what are some key differences between your work now as the Assistant Attorney General in the Criminal Division versus what you're going to be doing in the fall as the Assistant U.S. Attorney?
Yeah. So right now, I work at the state level.
Okay.
And D.C. is weird because D.C. is not an official state.
Yeah.
So the federal government basically controls the D.C. Capitol.
Right.
So the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C., the federal office, is in charge of all the felonies in D.C. So your murders, your robberies, your assaults, all those sorts of things, where it's handled by the federal office. We only handle misdemeanors. The highest case we have, or the most egregious case we have, is a DUI. Whereas if you go to Maryland, or if you go to California, certain districts in California, the state office, the district office, will handle those felonies. So if you're murdered in Los Angeles, the Los Angeles County's office will handle it, not the federal office. DC is the only office where the federal government prosecutes the felonies done in the state for the state crimes.
Oh wow!
So when I transition into U.S. Attorney's Office, I'm going to be handling federal crimes.
Right.
In Arizona, it's going to be more high stakes. I'm going to be near the border, so it's going to be border crimes like human trafficking, drug trafficking. There's a lot of Native American reservations in Arizona, and some of them outsource their prosecution to the federal office. So I'll be handling and more things in there. There's still more things that I'm not sure that they're going to just throw at me when I get there. But from what I know, that's what I'm going to be handling.
Interesting. Oh, I'm so fascinated about the Native American issues because I feel like that's not talked about enough. And on my mother's side, we have the Tunica Biloxi tribe on our side. So I'm just like, I'm curious because I don't really have any knowledge on what they're going through on the reservation and things like that, you know?
I'm excited to learn more about them too. I don't know a lot. And I'm sure this is an opportunity to be exposed to different areas for sure.
That makes sense. And then can you describe a challenging case or project that you've worked on recently and how you've navigated that? Because I think as a lawyer, especially as a Black man, I think, sometimes we have to do almost like a little bit of an overthink on how we're going to, handle something very challenging. It's like we're also, Black first. So it's like... Can you discuss anything? Like, obviously, most things are confidential, but anything you can share.
My last trial was probably the most difficult. It was a DUI, and we were trying to prove that he was driving under the influence through a urine sample. And normally you would think, well, he gave a urine and came back with alcohol in his urine. It's a clear-cut case, but no. We have to bring in toxicologist experts. We have to bring in all the paperwork, all the documentation. We have to have testimony about the machine that tests the urine, what those numbers mean, what's the science behind it. And when I first got here, I was like, that's what they do, whatever. But this is my first time on a trial like that. Right. And I'm like, the amount of just numbers and terms and long examinations, I was like, man, this is tough. And even when I had to doing a direct examination of a toxicologist, it was difficult. I have to make sure you can't miss a step in proving that this urine sample and this toxicology report is what it says it is. That's what you're trying to basically say. And that's probably the most difficult. And it's just showing how detail oriented you have to be as an attorney, where at least for me, there's a lot of things you could just like just breeze by. Like, oh, I could get by. I don't need to like when you're an attorney, like every little thing matters. You can't really try to skip by or skip over this. Like, no, because if you don't, you can lose your case.
Right.
In your mind, you can never tell what's going to make or break your case. You can never tell if it's going to be a chain of custody, if it's going to be this officer did that, or this toxicology missed this point. So you have to make sure every single ground is covered. And it can be frustrating because, like, man, I thought it's not like you're just throwing everything at the wall. You feel like you've covered all your bases, but like, no, it's very detailed. So that was probably the most difficult because I can tend not to be the most detail-oriented person.
Right.
So having to push my limits on that, and obviously having a great co-counsel who was pushing me to go back and ask this question because this wasn't covered. That was
wow. No, that makes sense. I mean, that explains why, you know, everybody's like, oh, to do the job well, you have to be very meticulous. And it's just like, oh, gosh, it's a lot of pressure to like, how meticulous do you think I need to be?
Not for real. It builds you, though. It builds your repertoire. It builds how efficient you are, how good your work is. That's how you're judged. Obviously, it's like judged as an attorney. Like, if a case comes back and it's all messed up, if a contract comes back and it's terrible, like, did you cover this? Like, are you sure you asked this question? Like, did you miss? Like, that's not a good look. But if no bad news comes back, that's good news.
Right.
Like, you don't want any word to come back about your case. You just want to be back as well.
That makes sense. Yeah. So, in having such a meticulous job and, you know, creating the podcast, what inspired you to start the podcast, to take on this other role, right? Like, you're also like a husband and you have friends, you're a son, like all the things. So it's just like, what inspired you to take on this other, like, non-paying job? You know what I mean? Like, people think like it's glamorous and you're like, I do this for free.
Right. Yes. It's like just more work.
Actually. Yeah.
So I started a podcast years ago with my boy Jason and Keon in New York.
Love
New York,
Keon, my big
called
bro.
The Junction Podcast. This was when podcasts wasn't pop. It was very, very much starting off the ground. And we have a group chat, a bunch of guys that we grew up together with. And we would always just talk about sports, media, current events. We was going back and forth.
I love that.
And Keon was like, yo, we should just start a podcast. Like, I have this idea for a podcast. Who wants to do it? And he was like, I don't want to be like on it. Right. But like, I had this idea, like somebody else do it. And I was like, and this is when I was still a paralegal and going to law school.
Wow.
And when he said that, it wasn't a like, oh, we should do it to make money. Or we should do it to be famous. Like, it would be cool if we just record these conversations. I'm like, oh, that's dope. I can figure it out. I'll do it. And Jason was like, yeah, I'll do it too. So me and Jason just started the podcast called The Junction. There's still episodes up if you want to go check it out.
Love that. Yes, plug.
And we just talked. It was mainly about sports and media and movies. We had a whole, like, when Black Panther first dropped, we had a whole Black Panther episode. Yeah. And the All-Star game would drop, or Super Bowl, or the NBA Finals, we would cover that. And it was just fun. I remember I was the one who had to do the editing, and I had like an online editor. I didn't know nothing about the live. I had an online editor that would like edit the podcast episodes online while I was at work.
Wow.
And the site will crash like regularly. It will crash. I would have to start over. So like I would have to like hurry up and finish the editing before it crashes, saves it.
Oh my God.
It would like crash 2 or 3 times before it's finished. And anybody who knows about editing would know that's terrible because like you do all the little edits. Yes. I would use like sound effects and little sound bites.
Right.
All that will be gone. I have to start all over and do all of it.
That's like my biggest fear.
So that was fun, but life responsibilities happened and we weren't able to continue it. But I really enjoyed it. That was the first time I was like, I really enjoyed podcasting. So I wrote down a name randomly. I don't know where it came from, but I wrote down a name. I do know where it came from, but I wrote down a name, Conversate. And at first, I wanted to be a podcast about young adults in D.C., young black adults, black young adults in D.C., how they navigate living for the Lord and also being young and being ambitious and being professionals in different areas and having those conversations. But I honestly don't know when the switch happened to attorneys. I just think I just had a note in my iPhone, just like writing down ideas. And eventually it was like, man, you know a lot of attorneys, you built a lot of relationships. It would be cool to just like sit down with them, specifically Black attorneys, and hear their stories. I was like, man, that'll be cool. And then I just started adding on to it. I started talking with people, started talking with my wife, running the idea about it. And they're like, yeah, that'd be dope. And then that's when I started reaching out to the different people that I knew and who I thought would be a great guest on. That's great.
I love that because it's so true. Like, I feel like you've mentioned that before to me of like, you know, we don't see a lot of us in like talking about our legal careers on a podcast. Like, there's so many dating podcasts. There's so many, you know, pop culture podcasts. It's like, okay, what about us in the career aspect? Because we're so much more. And so I appreciate you because I feel like I'm definitely gonna have to be on your podcast one day, but like I feel like there has to, it's like we need more discussions like this and to where it becomes so like natural and common that we see each other just having these discussions, you know what I mean? Like I'm so inspired by, you know, podcasts like Earn Your Leisure when they're talking about like the finance. I'm just like, that's great. Like I love anything that's showing us in a different light, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And just to have like a resource bank on the internet of attorneys that kids in high school and college and middle school can go to. Because growing up, I would have been dope to just like go online and just find somebody who looks like me, talks like me, as an attorney killing it in their space. Like, oh man, this is very encouraging. I could do this too.
100%.
That's the main motivator behind it. Like, I want a kid in high school who somebody told them, hey, you'll be a great lawyer because you like to argue. He's doing research, or she's doing research, and she finds your podcast or my podcast. Like, oh, dope, he looks like me. Like, let me find out what she did.
Exactly. And then it's almost like having a conversation with us, right? Like, it's I have this amazing intern at my company, and I'm just like, I'm pouring into her because someone poured into me, and I'm like, I wish more people had access to kind of like the nuggets that we're learning. But if we could even like share that on a podcast where it can reach more people, that would be amazing. Because I think if I would have known about certain careers, I wouldn't have thought like, oh, go to law school, med school, or business school. Those were like my only options my parents told me. And so I was just like, okay, I'll do law because I don't want to do math and science. So math, no business, no science, so no med. It's just like, this was the default. And luckily I fell in love with it, but I'm just like, there's so many people that don't, right? Like we just pursue a traditional path and then we're stuck, or at least we feel stuck. And so, that was one of my real reasons for starting this podcast, was to show people like how to get unstuck or how to do more than one thing, how to pivot, you know, with whatever pursuits you have.
Right. And having variety even within the law, because like you said, law school might be like the normal paths, but you might only think there's only criminal law.
Right.
Like, even diving deeper when I was in law school and going to different events, I didn't know about entertainment law. I didn't know about IP, copyright, tax, real estate. Like, even when you even dive deeper, like there's so much creativity in different avenues that you can go into that I wouldn't have known. If I didn't come across more than a lawyer, I wouldn't have known that there was a different type of attorneys that I can turn to. I don't have to be this one specific type of lawyer.
It's so true. And shout out to Netflix for like selling Sunset, owning Manhattan, buying London, like all these real estate shows. I was like, oh, should I have, like my dad was a real estate broker and now he's a CPA, but I was like, I always thought of it like, oh, that looks like a boring, but like job. But seeing on a TV, I'm like, oh, it's actually, I love architecture and design. Maybe I should have considered real estate law. I love that. No. And so what advice would you give to someone looking to transition from a supporting role like the paralegal specialist role to more advanced position within the legal field, and also someone that's thinking outside the box of wanting to maybe switch within their industries to another one? Like you mentioned, like you didn't know about entertainment law, right? But that may be something of interest down the road. Like what advice would you give someone just trying to pursue something outside of their daily norm?
Yeah. Be curious, man. Like, reach out to that lawyer that said that thing that really sparked your interest. Reach out to that other paralegal who works for, you may be in government, who works for that private firm, who's into IP. You really want to know about that. Email them, say, hey, I want to know more about what you do, yada, yada, yada. Just be curious and act on that curiosity. I say that. Be curious and act on that curiosity. I feel like a lot of times you are curious and you see something that you want to do, you want to take on more work. That'll be really cool to do, but you're afraid or you doubt yourself. You feel like you might not want to actually do this type of work, or you might not respond. So now you cut yourself off from a whole world of opportunity that you would have done. Yeah. I feel like while there were many times where I cut myself off, I thank God for the boldness at times that I had to just ask the question. To ask, hey, can I write that motion? Do you mind if I draft that?
Right.
Hey, can I come into the trial? As a paralegal, I've been creating all these trial binders for the last 2 months. Can I come with you to trial? Right. And then can I sit with you at the desk? Can I sit with you at the attorney's table?
I love that.
And it's times like that when you just take that leap of faith, you just take that step, you move past the fear, you move past the doubt, and you just move into the space of acting with your curiosity that you give yourself more opportunity. And you see whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
You get there, like, man, do I want to be in that courtroom? Right. Now here, I'm seeing what the judge does. I'm seeing what the attorney does. I'm seeing how you interact with the witnesses. I'm seeing how much paperwork and documents you need. I'm seeing how much time you got to stand up and sit down. I see how much time you got to talk. Is this what I want to do? Am I interested? And then if not, move on to the next thing. Go to that event. Go to that panel. Go to that event. And I would say, when it comes to relationships, it's also been a big deal for me too. And I've always valued quality over quantity, especially being in DC. When I first got here, it felt very much like a race to how many business cards you can get or how many people you can say you knew. But I never really went after that. It was like, it's quality. If I went to an event or if I was in a law school class or something like that, if I like what you said or if something that resonated with me, I'm going to reach out. Yes. I don't care what the title was. I don't really care what, like, oh, you must know this person. You get me this job. It was more so like, I really like your perspective on this thing. I'm going to reach out. Okay, can I just have a 15-minute conversation with you? Or can I get some coffee with you? So just the quality of a quality, just know that I'm going to build relationships with people that I just connect with. Not so much what you can do for me, but who do I connect with? Who do I want in my corner? 5 years from now, when I need some advice, I can just call up and like, hey, like, I'm going through this thing. I'm going this direction in my legal career. What do you think about this? So I would say those two things. Act on your curiosity and just build genuine relationships as you move through.
Oh, that's such great advice. And I feel like as I'm getting older, it's like I definitely realize the quality versus quantity is so key, because people can be, in your life for a season, but not for forever. And it takes a lot of work to like maintain those relationships. So it's like, and they always say it's not about who you know, but who knows you and who's going to vouch for you, because you may know someone or think someone is like someone you know, but then who knows how you shape up in their minds. You know what I mean? When you need someone to like write you a letter of recommendation or advocate for you, because most decisions are made that are key when you're not even in the room, right? Like whether to hire you, whether you're going to get this loan, whether you're going to like, get this home, whatever, like they're always when you're not in the room. So you want to make sure that people are lifting you up and not, just kind of like, oh, I know this person, but I don't know anything else about them, just say.
And it doesn't have to be complicated. I feel like people hear the word networking, they get kind of scared. I don't know, I was scared when I first came in, but it's like, it doesn't have to be complicated. Like I said, if you like something that somebody said on a podcast or some event you went to, like, hey, now growing in the profession and now being in a space where law students are coming to me for advice, which is very weird. I don't know if it's weird for you to have interns now.
It's weird.
It's so weird. Like the other day, I gave an assignment to an intern. I was like, "This is weird." This is weird. I still feel like an intern sometimes. Like I feel like I just came out of school.
I feel like we all have imposter syndrome, which I'm telling myself this year. I'm like, I'm no longer claiming that. I'm like, nope, I deserve to be in this seat.
Yes. No, for real.
Love that.
Like building that relationship doesn't have to be awkward. Like just come to a person like, "Hey, I like what you said here, or I like what you like. Tell me more about it." Like, that's good. And to follow up and be like, how have you been doing? Like, anything new is going on? Like, it doesn't have to be complicated or complex. Just be normal. Be a normal human being.
No, seriously, because I think just being passionate about something, showing interest, showing passion. I feel like people will always value that more than someone that's a know-it-all and it's like, I know all this, and you're just like, okay, but do you enjoy it? Like, because if you enjoy it, then I will pour into you because I know like it will go for a reason and not for naught, right? It'll be like I'm pouring into someone that will hopefully add to the industry and to this field instead of someone that's gonna just like move on with the next year.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
And that's also what I learned not being in a high position. When it comes to mentor-mentee relationships, I've heard the train of thought that you need to be able to bring something to the table also as a mentee.
Right.
And I've now being in mentor positions, like sometimes as a mentor, you have to just help people just for the sake of helping people. But when you're in college or high school or law school, there's not much you can bring to the table. You don't know nothing, you haven't done nothing, so it can't be so transactional. Everything can't be quid pro quo.
Right.
Like if you see somebody in law school who's struggling in their first semester with grades, or somebody in high school who really wants to understand what the law is, like you can't come into it thinking like, well, what can you do for me and I'll help you out. Like, no, like they don't know nothing.
Right.
Like just help. Like just help.
Yes.
Like, I've been doing that more often. Like if I see you in the office or you reached out, I'm just gonna help you. I'm not gonna be like,
oh, I love that.
You balance this thing out. Like, no, it's okay to just help just for the sake of help.
No, that's awesome. Now, looking forward, what are your career goals and aspirations like down the road? Because you've already excelled so quickly since graduating law school. Are there any upcoming projects or initiatives that you want to get involved in, or even with your podcasting that you're excited about?
Yeah. Man, there's so much I want to do. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. So first, as you know, I'm moving to Arizona to be a USA, so that's the biggest thing.
That's huge.
Becoming a better attorney. That's what I'm looking forward to. Just building on my public speaking skills, building on my interviewing skills, to connect with people, and my understanding of the law.
Love
going
that.
In that space. And as you know, just eventually I'm interested in extended law.
Right.
And seeing where that goes and seeing what space I can get into. So I want to learn more about that. Also, my wife just launched our firm, the Earle Law Group.
Oh, wow.
Where she'll be focusing on estate planning,
family
law. Yeah, so that's big.
That's huge. I will be reaching out to her.
Yeah, please do. For any estate planning needs in Arizona area, please reach out.
I love that.
So we're going to be building that. And that's for the podcast. And I just want to connect with more attorneys. I want to just build a bigger bank of infotainment and just have more people impacting. And that's the best thing when people reach back out or comment on the videos. Like, one of my interviews, he's an attorney who graduated law school at 50 years old. And he was on his journey, and somebody under the YouTube comment was like, "Oh, I'm about to start law school. I'm like 40-something years old." It's so encouraging. And so stuff like that is like dope. So I want to keep doing that for people. I want to keep building that repertoire for people. So I don't really have like a big goal for the podcast. I want to get my reps in. See what I could build into, whether it's like a production studio or producing other podcasts.
Yes.
Different stuff like that. It's like I have like A, D, and like F in my head, but I don't have the other letters filled in yet. Like I'm waiting for God to like fill in like the rest of it. But
I love that.
And eventually I feel like all these things are gonna coming together into one.
100%.
I'm just waiting for that day. Being patient. Just working and being patient.
It's true. I mean, you have the best outlook on things because I think it's only looking back, hindsight is 2020, right? Then you'll realize like, oh, it all kind of like led to this. But at the time when you're being present in your moment and it's like you have like, obviously you have aspirations down the line, but you're just like how you get to them. It's kind of like it's unfolding as it's happening, right? So it's like as you're being present, as you're doing good work, you never know who's seeing you, who's even hearing you today on this podcast, right? So it's just like you never know what opportunities will be coming your way, but you know eventually down the line you'll be getting to from A to Z. Yeah.
For sure. You have to be where your feet are. And you couldn't predict the future even if you tried.
Right.
Sitting in my undergrad legal class or constitutional law class, there's no way I would have thought like Arizona. I didn't write Arizona down on my 5-year plan or anything like that. Like, even if you try, but it's like, as long, like you said, as long as you stay present, you just have in mind of like what you want to do, and just allow God to like fill in those different things, and not try to have so much control, and then be open to it. Be open to an Arizona. Be open to a California. Be open to overseas. And see where that takes you, and see the people that you're going to meet, relationships that you're going to build. Like, if you're so stuck on the ideas or the plan, or like the very meticulous plan you have in your head, you won't be able to let go and grab onto the things that come along. So,
I mean, Arizona's so close to Cali, so either way, we're gonna have to do a double date soon. And
for sure.
You never know. Arizona might lead you to be moving to California with your entertainment stuff.
I thought about it. my wife, not so much. She was like, "I don't know, you keep pushing it." She's like, "I'm ready to go to Arizona. You push it down." I'm like,
she's like, "How many places are you taking me?"
Exactly. And I've never been to California, so I know this is gonna be my first time actually be on the West Coast.
Yes.
Go to California. Go to all the West Coast states.
Yes. Well, you're more than welcome. I mean, you know my husband, so like,
you
definitely have to come hang with us, and like, we'll definitely show you a good time. Yeah. Oh, well, we have moved on to the lightning round, where there's only 4 questions left, and it's 1 to 5 word responses. So that's why we call it the lightning round. And so the main question to start off with is, you kind of answered this, but like, your passion for the legal field and for podcasting comes from what?
Is it a 4 to 5 word response?
Yes. And because I'm asking you for 2 different fields, you can do like up to 8 words. But
okay.
Yeah.
My passion for the legal field and podcasting comes from my love for connecting with people.
Oh, look at you! He's like, I don't need extra words. Love that. And then do more what? What do you want to do more of?
I want to do more of stepping outside my comfort zone.
I love that. I mean, hey, I read what was it, The Year of the Yes? Was it Shonda Rhimes' book or whatever that she read? And that really helped her step out. And I did that in New York, and honestly, that led me to moving back to LA, meeting my now husband. It's just like getting a dog, like all the things, just like being open. And now I'm obsessed with every part of that. You know what I mean? So it's just like, you never know.
Just realizing like everything you want outside of getting over that doubt, that fear, those reservations.
Yeah.
And it's the fact that you have to keep doing it. Because obviously you are where you are because you moved past that. Right. But you know there's more that you want to do. So you're going to have to keep getting over it.
Exactly.
Keep saying yes. You have to keep.
Yes.
And it's like, God dang, man, I've already done this like 7 times. I know. But you know there's more you want. You know there's a lot more you accomplish. It's
so true. It's like, for whatever reason, life's not fun if you're not challenging yourself a little bit. If you're stuck in kind of like your same routine, I feel like that's boring, right? Like, I read this quote. It was, don't live the same day or same year 75 times in a row. And I was like, dang, that's true. Because like every year there's always the same holidays, but do you have to do the same things? No. Do you have to do the same approaches on, how you go, wake up in the morning and go to work? No. Like, you can change the routine and really bring some excitement to your life.
I know, for real. I told somebody that advice the other day because they were struggling with like stepping outside their comfort zone and not knowing what they want to do. I was like, yo, take a different route to work. Just need to start small. Like, just do something different. Like, you're in the same pattern of thinking negatively, feeling like you're stuck in the same place. Start small of doing something different. You see it, shit signals. Start by just take a left to go over to the right.
Exactly.
See how that
Yeah. Get up a little earlier if you want, just so you feel like you're more comfortable with it. And it's something about getting up a little bit earlier each morning. Like, I try to yeah, Sheldon is such an early bird, so I try each morning to get up just a little bit closer to his time, but I'm like, I'm not getting up at 5 a.m. But like very close. I still need the sun to be, out when I'm up, but I'll try a little bit earlier just because I'm like, you know what? It is something about like not feeling rushed in the morning that kind of sets up your day like, oh, it's a good day.
No, for real. Once everybody's out and moving, you feel like you're behind. I need to like match the energy that's going on.
Yeah.
If you wake up early, the sun is not out, very quiet, still a little cold.
Yes.
Feel like I'm it makes you feel better than people do. Like, I'm doing something that nobody else is doing. Like nobody's out right now. I'm the only one out right now. Right. You're killing it.
Yeah. And then last two, so something interesting about you that we don't know.
Something interesting about
That's always a hard one for most guys.
It is. Like, I don't think I'm that interesting.
Like, do you have a special talent? Like, can you draw? Are you like obsessed with something very interesting, like anime? I don't know. Like, is there anything?
I play the drums. Well, I haven't played honestly.
Really?
I've been playing drums since I was a kid. Each church I've been at, I've been playing the drums. I love music.
Ooh. Okay. Well, we definitely need to learn more, but I know I'm getting the countdown sign. So, but okay, we'll have to come back to that offline. And then how was your experience on the podcast? This was, like you said, your first one where you're not the host. So this is interesting to hear your perspective.
It was great. I was fighting back questions I wanted to ask because it's just so hard not to be. It's so weird being on this side. I had questions in my head. No, but it was good. It was good.
Yeah.
Thank you for your question.
Yeah.
Very introspective thing that I really think about. But no, this was fun. I love the setup. You got a nice setup.
Thank you. Yeah, see, next time when you and your wife come to LA, you guys can do it in person for another season. It's like, I feel like, I just love the setup. Fun fact, this is exactly the same studio that Earn Your Leisure records. It's not this setup, obviously, but like there's different options. But I was just like, you know what? I'm inspired.
Yeah, you got some good energy in there. You got some winning energy.
Yeah, some good energy. Shout out to my sound engineer. She's dope. For
sure. So that's a good dope. That's a good spot.
Oh, thank you. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. This has been an amazing, engaging story. Like, I feel like you gave us the real world. I've learned some things because I don't know that side of the legal field. Like, I feel like you're a true lawyer. I'm like doing entertainment law. I feel like, transactional. It's like agreements. It's more business than legal sometimes. You know what I mean? So I'm so fascinated by the true, like, in the court prosecutors, what we see on TV. Is it the same? Is it not? So thank you so much for your time. That was incredible. And then everyone stay tuned for next week where you'll hear another amazing guest showing us how cool it is to do more than one thing, because after all, we are so much more, and I'm hoping everybody remembers that. So tune in for next week, and I'll talk to you guys later. Toodles.
Bye.